Well, hey there, boys and squirrels. Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode I'm kind of loosely calling the amp and the idiot. Now, I could be the idiot or not. We're going to kind of find out because I'll explain to you exactly what's going on. And this is not the Behringer that I did in the last video. This amplifier is right back here. It's a Carvin SX-100. It is a transistor amp with 100 watts RMS of flower power through a single 12-inch speaker. It's a pretty darn good pedal platform because it does cleans really well. I wouldn't characterize its overdrive tones as being all that great, but then they're not terrible. So give you an idea of what the amp looks like here from the front, the faceplate. Right now I have the grill taken off because of the speaker. So what was going wrong with the amp? Well, I had it fully gone through right before COVID by a local shop called Top Gear. They're located in La Mesa, just east of San Diego. And Top Gear is probably one of the better stores for having equipment worked on, especially amps, and they're probably one of the only guys in town that will work on transistor amps. So Tim did my amp and he said, well, it sounds pretty good to me. He said they replaced a few caps on it and dialed in all the pots and put the contact cleaner through the whole thing. And when I got it back home and I played it in the shop, it sounded fine to me. And then I put it away for like 4 years, COVID, because I haven't been playing out. So, I don't need a amplifier that's as loud as this. My little Behringer is fine for practice and, band rehearsals and things like that. This would just overwhelm the room. So the next step on this one was I said, well, I'm not really doing much with it, so maybe I want to sell it. So I got it out, fired it up in the garage, took my guitar down there and plugged it in. And it had a really nasty buzzing at higher volumes that just sounded exactly to me like it was a blown speaker. So now I'm going, oh crap, do I have to get a new speaker for this? Further testing led me to believe yes, because then I unplugged the speaker from the cabinet here and made myself a patch cable and plugged it into my PA speaker, which is a pretty good 10-inch with a little horn thingy on it. And that sounded 100% clean to me, so there wasn't any buzzing or harmonic distortion or anything like that coming out of it. So I started down the path of trying to replace the speaker. Now I'll show you what's in there. So what was in the amp is this. This is a Carvin VL12 made in USA speaker. It is most likely, according to everybody I've talked to, it's probably an Eminence because that's who was doing Carvin's OEM speakers at the time. But then they also had a few speakers that were coming from other sources, so it's hard to say, but looks to me like an Eminence. And there's no, there's markings on it that are unique to Carvin, so I really can't tell. So anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to hunt around for a speaker because I'm thinking about selling the cabinet, selling the amp itself. So I didn't want to put a whole lot of money into it, but I wanted something that had, fairly good power handling capability and would just demonstrate at least that the amp works and that it was suitable for gigging or whatever. So that led me to my first replacement speaker, which is this. And it is, as you can see, it's a 5-core original speaker system, SP12135, made in India. It's an 8-ohm speaker just like the original, and it supposedly can handle 100 watts of flower power. Oh, and the other thing is, because it is made in India, You get a free trip to a Maharaji, and you get a Slurpee with every speaker. A racist would say. Anyway, so I put that speaker in, got everything set up again. Unfortunately, that's a 6 screw speaker, so I was able to mount 2 of them pretty tightly. But the moment I turned on the amp and plugged the guitar in, played it, I was getting like harmonic buzzing on the A and D strings this time. Nothing on the lower strings, but on the A and D. And I'm like, that's just weird. So I thought, well, probably the speaker got damaged in shipment. I mean, it happens. UPS just throws crap around, and you never know what's going to happen to a voice coil under those circumstances. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to bring up another picture of a speaker, right? And here we are. And this was the next speaker that I bought. I'll bring it up in size here so you can see it a little better. It's a 12 VR. And it's 8 ohms. This was on special from Guitar Center, so I only paid maybe $47 with California horrible sales tax on it and some kind of a little discount thing. So it's only rated for 75 watts RMS. So the amp would be a little tiny bit overpowering for it, but usually not enough to worry about, because even Carvin went to an 80 watt speaker in the next generation of the SX-100. So it wasn't fully capable there, but I think they wanted a little bit more breakup in the sound. All right, so then I put the Electro-Harmonix in, and the Electro-Harmonix speaker is what is in the amp right now behind me. And I started fooling around with it and playing it, and then I noticed, well, it sounds really super clean. It's bright, it's crisp, but ever so slightly when I turned up that volume, I was getting the same kind of harmonic sounding buzzing noise. And now I'm thinking, all right, 3 speakers, they can't all be bad. They can't all be doing this. Now I have to go through and try to isolate exactly what is causing the buzzing noise. And this cabinet is all built out of plywood. It's all glued and screwed together. So it's not the cabinet. It wasn't the grill cloth facing it. I double checked the connection between the reverb tank and the chassis on the amp, and that was fine. So now I started playing my A and D and E strings on the guitar with the volume turned up, and I've got one hand playing the strings and I've got the other hand reaching around to the amp on the back side here and pushing on different parts of the chassis, because that's literally the only thing I think is left in what might be causing the buzzing. And sure enough, kind of when I pushed on the right-hand side of the chassis up underneath and pressed it in a certain way, the buzzing went away. And now I'm like, oh, crap. So I may have bought 2 speakers when the solution was not in replacing the speaker. So what was it that I think is causing the problem? Well, first of all, I tightened down all of the nuts to the transformer, to the circuit board. I went through the whole front panel and all the front panel, took all the knobs off, tightened up everything, because the circuit board has all of the potentiometers are mounted directly to the circuit board. So that's another piece of what is holding the circuit board in place, is all of those knobs on the front of the instrument panel. Same thing true for the jacks and for the other parts. So I tightened everything down, tightened the transformer down, and turned it on, and I was still getting a little bit of buzzing. So now I got to figure out what the heck is going on here. Well, I started to crank down a little more on the screws that actually hold the chassis in from the top. And that's when I realized that the screws themselves were turning at the end of their travel. So in other words, it screwed it all the way down, but I was still had a little bit of stuff going on there where the screw was not fully tightening up. Well, I pulled the chassis out one more time, and what I discovered on looking at where the screws go in was this. And you can see that the item on the right is the original nylon nut that fits into a little square hole on the lip of the chassis. And sure enough, the screws were slipping in the nut because it had probably been taken apart one too many times, and finally the nut just gave up. So now I got to find replacement nuts. Well, as it turns out, the replacement nut that fits exactly into that hole is a pretty standard auto part used for holding headlight bezels and other body trim pieces in place. So I went down to AutoZone and I got this, which is an assorted pack of little nuts that you can plug right back in. So I popped those out, plugged in the new nut, tightened everything down, and this time the screw went to the end, and I could actually now feel that the chassis itself was pulling up tight up underneath the top plate of the amp. So, all right, hopefully that did it. Well, it did. So the bottom line is the Electro-Harmonix speaker that is in there right now, no more buzzing, everything is clear. I turned the amp all the way up, to like drown out the neighborhood volumes, and it was fine. I wasn't getting any of that harmonic waste and buzzing and all that other crap. So the next part of this is I'm going to show you what each one of these speakers sounds like. And we're going to see if any of them are actually damaged or whether it was just my idiocy and not being able to diagnose the problem with the amp in the first place. And what I'm going to do, what I did was show you. I'll be going, get to the point, Tom. So this is my Schecter Solo 6. And I recorded a series of chords and then a short single note sort of run on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I recorded that digitally off of my foot pedal, and I am going to play that back and change the speaker out each time for each different playback. And at the same time, I'm also going to show you, we'll do it both totally clean. We'll adjust the amp so it's a little bit dirty, and then you can make your own decision. You can see what the guitar sounds like. There are, unlike a lot of the other demos that you see for speakers, I'm not using any effects. This is just a very, very dry guitar sound. So it will be dry. It may not be to your liking, but it's a true representation of what the amp sounds like, with all the controls basically set at the 12 o'clock position. And the only thing that I'm mucked with is going to be the volume, and I'm going to switch the overdrive section of the amp on for a certain part of it. So you'll hear the first one will be clean, second one will be overdrive. First one will be the Electro-Harmonix speaker, The next one's going to be the Made in India 5-core speaker, and the last one we're going to try is going to be the original Carvin speaker. We'll see how these things sound, and that's going to be the next part of the video. And you will not really hear from me anymore because I'm going to put up the titles and everything like that to let you know what's happening. All right, so we're going to pause this and get set, switch channels around, and we're going to record directly into this little Shure SM75 clone. So hang on. Well, hey there, gang. Welcome back after a little round of listening to a few speakers there. Um, Here's the big conclusion. I am a fucking idiot because $4 worth of AutoZone parts would have kept me from having to go through all of this agony and testing and buying speakers and figuring that none of them worked. All three of them worked. It was just that each one of them was responding in a different way to the chassis vibration. So solving that chassis vibration, which was really kind of a hidden weirdness in this whole setup, it just makes me appreciate people who actually know what they're doing to begin with. Please excuse again the guitar playing. I'm really a lead vocalist and a kind of a rhythm guitar player, and I can play leads occasionally, but you know, it's just licks off of records that I've learned. Quote Martin Mull. So let's say here's my ear listening to each one of the speakers. I thought the Electro-Harmonix and the 5-core, the Electro-Harmonix, by the way, is made in China, and the 5-core sounded a lot alike. They both had a kind of a crisp, clean, crystalline sort of a sound to them, where, you know, the sounds of the guitar, which my Schecter is not naturally a jangly guitar. You know, it's not like a Telecaster, and it's certainly not like a Strat. So it, you know, tends to have a little smoother, bigger tones to it because of the two humbuckers on there. And I played those riffs with the setting in the neck position. So just in case you wondered, I thought the 5-core and the EH sounded pretty much the same. I don't know if the 5-core can handle the higher volumes or not, because I think the magnet on it is a little bit smaller than that of the Electro-Harmonix. But, you know, magnet size is not a real true indicator of whether or not a speaker can handle volume or not, because there's lots of speakers that are designed with, you know, higher ferrite and neodymium, something, you know, magnets, and then there's alnicos and all the different things. And so it's not a particularly good indicator of how much power a speaker can handle. But I have, you know, based on my limited experience with the 5-core, I think it should do okay. You know, it certainly would be good for anything up to about 75 watts RMS, and this amp is 100. And the Carvin speaker, I thought, sounded like a British speaker would sound. You know, it sounded the most vintage of the three. It had a more mellow tone. And the last little section that you heard was me cranking the amp up to 5, almost 6 on the dial. And that was ear-splittingly loud here in my office slash studio slash whatever you want to call this place. It was just, you know, I was having a hard time. I actually had to cover my ears up in the back here because it was just really freaking loud. So the Carvin speaker didn't fall apart, didn't buzz, didn't do any of the stuff that I had heard before. So again, emphasis on the construction here. I am an idiot. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something from this, and I hope you appreciate the 3 different speakers. Let me know in the comments down below which one you thought sounded the best. And keep in mind, again, I have no effects on any of this thing. They're straight up as dry can be. No cabinet sims, nothing. It's just the straight digital recording of the guitar being played back through the foot pedal and directly into the guitar input on the amplifier. So you're getting basically what it sounds like. And, you know, I listened to each one of these recordings afterwards just to make sure. And yeah, they sound pretty much exactly like what I'm hearing in the room. I don't know if that's going to translate to YouTube or not, but regardless, who knows? Hope you had a little bit of fun with this, and maybe next time around I'm going to save you some agony when you go check to see how that amp chassis of yours is connected to the top of the cabinet. Bye for now.
Goodbye.